Hello, I'm Martin Wyatt. You know, it may seem strange at first to think of a team lineup made up of names like Ruth, Galileo, Da Vinci, Pele, Copernicus, and Michelangelo. Well, this may not be so far-fetched after all. Here's KGO Radio San Francisco sports director Rich Walkoff with a few experts in their own right to shed some light on this unique lineup.
Hello everyone, I'm Rich Walkoff, and with all the issues and controversy surrounding athletics and academics, it's as if the scholastic altar that just about everyone kneels before has inscribed on it, "You're here for an education first and sports second." Then the educational congregation utters its collective amen, and everyone goes about their business. The conventional wisdom in education is that sport and academics are two separate entities, with one much more important than the other. Well, we all know which one that is. However, at the height of the Athenian era in ancient Greece, sports was considered a part of the arts and humanities. It was also studied through the sciences, and an integrated physical education was the cornerstone of the curriculum. Yes, sports as a part of the arts and the humanities and science, the mind, the body, and the spirit, all integrated into the learning process of the whole person. Today, students go to first period math, second period language arts, third period physiology or whatever, and fourth period PE. You get the picture. Everything is separate. But if we listen carefully to the experts in the respective fields of sports, the arts and the humanities, and the sciences, we'll find that there are fundamental principles that seem to unite these seemingly different disciplines. So with that, let's examine some of these with our great panel here today. We have Jennifer Azzi, Stanford basketball star, an Olympic gold medalist, and a WNBA player in her day. We've got John Doyle of the San Francisco Earthquakes, a player then, an Olympian, and a GM of the team now. We've got Dr. Alex Filipenko, UC Berkeley astronomy professor. And we've got Brad Gilbert, a television commentator in tennis, an author, and a great tennis pro in his day. And Brian Stortz from the San Francisco Art Institute. So we bring you all together, and I want to thank you all for being here. I'm going to throw out the first few questions about fundamental principles of sport with each one of you, and we'll have the athletes respond to the questions, and we'll ask Dr. Filipenko and Brian if what the athletes say relates in any way to astronomy and the arts. All right, so here we go. Let's see, Jennifer, the first principle is balance. How does it play into playing basketball, balance in basketball?
Balance is everything. I mean, you know, you need to be on good balance to shoot, to play defense. Really, all the movement on the court requires balance. And even now, physical therapists are working a lot more in prevention with different kinds of exercises, working on your balance, working on those techniques that are going to help you out on the court.
Yeah, be at the core. Brad, tennis, balance. You don't have it. You don't have game.
Well, one thing about balance, I mean, you can be really fast on the tennis court, but if you're falling all over the place, you're not efficient. If you see the best tennis player in the world, Roger Federer, he looks so relaxed, his balance, you know, he's upright, the way he moves, you know, some people say he looks like a ballerina, and that's why he's a phenomenal tennis player, but balance is a huge part in tennis.
Yeah, and finding your center, I guess it's as important in sports as it is perhaps in finding that in the universe. And who knows better about the universe than Dr. Filipenko? Is balance a fundamental principle in our cosmos?
Oh, absolutely, Rich. To give you an example, a star is kept in balance, a mechanical balance, because gravity is pulling in on the star, trying to make it collapse, and the hot gases are pushing out, causing it to expand. And so there's this balance that keeps it in a, you know, a configuration that doesn't change. And it's similar to this balloon here. If I blow it up, the air is pushing out, trying to make it expand, but the tension of the rubber is pulling in, making it contract, and those two are in balance, keeping it stable. Similarly, a star is stable and keeps shining in the same way for a long time.
So that's just not a lot of hot air then. Huh?
Yeah, no.
That's very good. All right, how about balance in the arts, Brian?
Well, that probably would pertain to a more philosophical approach in terms of the creative process with artists. I guess, you know, keeping these disciplines balanced within your process, within your expertise is going to allow you to reach your audience and potentially have a positive effect on our culture.
Okay, that balance is one of the so-called fundamentals of athletic mastery skills that crosses over from academics to the arts to the sports. What about rhythm? That's another principle. And John Doyle, what about rhythm? How does it manifest itself in the game of soccer?
I think rhythm is the pace at which you play the sport at. When you control the ball, whether you're going to play quickly with the ball, whether you're going to take time. We always say that you have to keep in rhythm. Certain times in the game you have to attack quickly. Certain times you have to pull back a little bit and keep possession of the ball. So it's important as a player to feel the rhythm of the game. Some players don't feel that, and those are the players that don't succeed. The players that understand the rhythms of the game and how the game's going and feeling in the game, those are the ones that are successful.
And I bet, Jennifer, it's a real parallel to basketball. As opposed to off the foot, it's in your hands. So rhythm in basketball.
Oh, I agree completely with what John said. And the way I look at rhythm in basketball in terms of skills, I think to be a good shooter, you have to be in your rhythm. And you have to shoot a lot in order to get that rhythm and that confidence. But that's everything in basketball as well.
See, that seems so natural and so easily understood for athletes. But how does it apply to the arts, Brian?
Well, I think it's important to remember that this is a visceral experience, using the arts as a means of educating our culture, and rhythm is maybe being in touch with your personal rhythm with your life and embracing that. And I guess the most important is to surround yourself with positivity, having people around you to support you and to foster these ideas that you ultimately want to see prevail.
Mm-hmm. Now, our prop meister, Dr. Filipenko, rhythm in the cosmos. If you don't have rhythm, we're not here, right?
Yeah, well, rhythm is all over the place in the cosmos. And a simple example is the rhythm of the phases of the moon. You know, as the moon goes around the Earth, you see from the perspective of someone on the Earth, different parts of it illuminated by the sun. And that rhythmic monthly phase is something that repeats over and over again. And, you know, it goes along with just looking at the sky and seeing these patterns repeat themselves. Similarly, the moon causes the tides, and those are rhythmic. And then there are the seasons, which are obviously rhythmic. So rhythm appears all over the place in the cosmos.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
we wouldn't be here without it.
Right.
How about the whole nature of instinct, Brad, to the game of tennis? You wrote the book, Winning Ugly, and the inner game is so key. And it all starts with instinct, doesn't it?
Well, there's no question. I mean, you're trying to figure something out that someone else is trying to figure out. And you're trying to get inside their head, you know, to expose what you want to happen under pressure, what you don't want to happen under pressure. Unlike, their sports, which is team, in an individual sport, I mean, you don't have anybody to rely on. I mean, if things aren't going well, it's not like you can substitute somebody in. Mm-hmm. And so that is the big battle right there, it's keeping it in the brain, focusing on what the other person's doing as well.
Yeah, and keeping that focus. When you speak of instinct, is it just from the gut, or are we talking about, the mind sometimes can get in the way of the physical performance? So how does that manifest itself?
Well, I call it tendencies a little bit. Sometimes, if it's you or your coach scouts sometimes thing under it's kind of learning people your area, trying to expose what you feel like that you can get out of what they're not really focused on, what you think that you can do to them.
Mm-hmm. And instinct in soccer, John, because that's something either you have or you don't have. I mean, it's intrinsic, isn't it?
I think, too, it's a little bit culture in soccer, because soccer's played everywhere in the world. So you look at an Italian team, their instincts are to defend a little bit. You look at a Brazilian team, their instincts are to attack with flair. You look at the American teams, we're somewhere in between. Sometimes we don't know what we want to do. Do we want to defend? Do we want to attack? So I think the instincts, then you separate that from individual instincts on the field. Some players are going to attack. Some players want to play with flair. And those, I think they're instincts, but I think they're learned over time, too.
Yeah, that's just what I was going to ask you. Can you instill that in somebody? Can you awaken that? Which is the more dominant message?
I like you say you awaken it. I think that's a way to expose them to that if you attack and you try things, that you can achieve those things, and you can have success with it.
So everybody has an instinct. It may not be as developed, or people may not be as in touch or in tune with it. So how would you bring that out in somebody? What would be the methodology in that, perhaps?
I think it's through if you're successful at it, and success isn't necessarily scoring goals or winning the ball, but but trying it in the right times and games that you encourage the player.
Yeah.
And that, or a child that's learning sports in a youth level, you give encouragement, and you give them encouragement for trying, and then they feel, okay, I'll give it a shot again.
Right.
And then their instinct becomes, oh, okay, now I'm gonna. When they get in something in a pressure situation, then they're not afraid to do it.
Yeah, if you put some, it'll grow, right? Now, I think instincts, I don't necessarily think of the universe again, but I'm certain Dr. Filipenko illuminated a different point.
Yeah, well, so of course, stars and planets, being inanimate objects, don't have instinct per se. But scientists studying the universe can act in an instinctive way. Sometimes you have an intuitive feel or an instinctive feel for how something works, and then what you do is you formulate this hypothesis, and then you gather data to try to confirm the hypothesis. So scientists do use their own instinct, even if stars and galaxies and planets themselves do not have instinct.
All right, that's the science, that's the sport. How about the art, Brian?
It's very interesting. The instincts, I believe, are imperative in how an artist cultivates an idea. Through the creative imagination, your instincts will design either a successful or a not successful idea that will have an effect on our society. I think that instincts are imperative in that we have
Well, it's right from the gut.
Yeah, it is.
Isn't it really from the gut when you get right down to it?
Yeah, because you're dealing with passion, and when you're dealing with people that possess passion about something that they firmly believe in, that's a risk. They're taking the risk to present that to the world, and that's what I intend to do, is to help cultivate that.
Yeah.
So.
Is it also part of listening to that inner voice in a way, that little voice that you hear the first time, and if you run with that first thought or that first instinct, if you will? You guys comment on that on sports.
Well, you don't want to second guess yourself. If you have a thought and you think it's working, go with it. Because it's really easy to talk yourself out of something.
Right.
You feel like it, or he's going to get onto it. But I think sometimes the best audience is yourself. You kind of bounce it around, you think about it a little bit, but go with that idea. Don't take in too many others.
Yeah, because if you get your mind all caught up in second thoughts and second guessing and the like, maybe again just trust your gut, and that first feeling or that first thought is the true instinct coming out. Is that how you feel it, Jennifer?
Absolutely, and I think also the more prepared you are, the more honed your instincts are going to become. So the better shooter you are in basketball, the more you're not going to second guess that shot, and you're going to shoot more on instinct. And I think it all boils down to preparation too.
If you second guess yourself, then all of a sudden you're done.
Yeah.
And I think even if you miss 20, no matter what you do, if you prepared yourself, you got to tell yourself you're going to make it.
And I don't want to say that you should take your head out of the game as a soccer player, John, because I know sometimes you need to do a header. But isn't it true you can be your own worst enemy if you overthink and overanalyze and analysis paralysis and all that stuff?
Yeah, there's no time. There's no time to think it over in soccer. I mean, you have to make a quick decision, whether it's defensively, offensively, tackling somebody, playing the ball. And I know you get into trouble, players get into trouble all the time when they stand on the ball too long. And they're thinking, you can see it in their mind. They're thinking, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And they're holding the ball, and the thing they do is wrong. So we always tell the players, hey, do the first thing you think about. Do it and see what happens.
And trust your instincts.
Yep.
And when you trust your instincts and things get rolling, then you got the old Mo is on your side.
Right.
You've got momentum. So Jennifer, momentum. Maybe in basketball, well, I guess in all sports, but I see ball because that's a visceral thing. The fans are so close to the action, and you can feel the energy. And when one team gets momentum, everybody knows it. And when one team loses momentum, everybody knows it.
Yeah, I mean, momentum is like a tidal wave, and when you have it and it's on your side, you can do the impossible. I mean, shots are, just about falling from half court. So when you have that as a team, I mean, you just need to go with it.
Yeah, and I know, Brad, in tennis, same sort of thing. The close proximity of the fans, when you start getting a little something going, you start to feel that momentum, and it could be, as Jennifer says, like a tidal wave.
Oh, there's no question. In tennis, it can just happen out of nowhere. On one point, you can be down, but it's amazing how you can feel it, the crowd can feel it, your opponent can feel it. It's that how many times in sports you hear, Mo is right now, he's on the line.
Right.
And in tennis, you can grab it real quickly because it's 1 against 1.
Yeah. And is it as evident in soccer, John?
Absolutely. You see it all the time where every loose ball, every challenge starts going one team's way. and you can't, once you lose it, it's almost impossible to get it back.
Yeah, I always wondered, is that luck when someone says, oh, they got every loose ball. They really lucked out tonight. But it's not really luck, is it?
No.
I mean, you think about that. But you've heard that, haven't you?
But
how lucky they were. Every loose ball, they hit the post, everything went their way, and everything went against us.
Yeah, but I think sometimes there's a little bit of luck in it. You know, it does bounce, you know, instead of hitting the pole and going to the right, it goes to the left, and that's, you were on the right, the forward was on the left, he finishes it. Or as a forward, the same thing. You chose, your instincts took you one way, the ball hit off the post, and you scored. So I think there's a little bit of luck, but I think it's a lot of hard work.
And when we talk about momentum in art, that's a little different sense. So that's where you're here, Brian.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because the momentum can appear as an art movement or an idea that grabs the attention of the masses that through time can foster into a very important movement in itself and have a positive effect on our society. Oftentimes you'll find many movements or many different momentums moving in one direction, but I think it's important to remember that there's nothing more exciting than seeing a young mind or a mind that is aware enough that they're excited about their life, they're excited about what they're creating, and as an artist it's important to remain cultivating that idea so that it gains momentum.
I always think of an artist having a big canvas, and I wonder, do they get up every day and say, I'm going to do 10% or 5%, or you have a hot day, you just run with it because you've got the mo on your side?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that, you know, dedication, discipline, these are all principles that athletes learn very young, and these things have to be applied as an artist, as a thinker, as a human being. It's imperative, I think, for all of us as a society to support one another and to cultivate growth.
Mm-hmm. All right, we know the universe has momentum because if it didn't, again, what would we have, right?
Well, I mean, momentum, or mass times velocity, is a very fundamental concept in astronomy and physics. So, for example, for an isolated system, one that's not being acted upon by any forces, the momentum remains the same. It's constant. So let's take the case of two stars orbiting one another. Okay? The momentum of one always balances the momentum of the other so that the momentum of the total system remains the same at all times. Now, if, for example, a star goes past a black hole, the black hole can pull on the star, change its momentum, and thus change its trajectory. But in an isolated system, the momentum is always balanced between the two objects.
The first time I've heard play-by-play of the universe. That's pretty fascinating. Well, there are fundamentals of mastery skills that come into play for sports and the arts and the sciences. Now, we talked about instinct and things like that. What other aspects come into play? So, John, you give me an idea of the concepts that cross over the arts, the science, the sports, that have application everywhere.
I think it's emotion, too. As we talked about the last topic, you get momentum from emotion sometimes, and then you take those risks. I would think in art, I would think that sometimes as you get on a roll, you start to feel good about something, and because you feel good. And I think for athletes, when you're feeling good and then things start to go right. And then once they go right, it builds on that, and then you can't stop players.
Yeah, good thing emotion had nothing to do with Brad Gilbert's tennis game. Oh, Brad, hey, what do you think?
I mean, for me, it comes down to loving what you're doing.
Yeah.
Just getting out there and being passionate, and you're getting a chance to do something you've done your whole life. I mean, and this thing, getting out there, getting a chance to eat, and take something that someone's trying to take from you. It's the greatest.
Okay. So emotion and passion. Jennifer, anything else, or you want to just run with that one? Those are great
I like
ones,
that.
right?
Those actually are,
sure.
but I think there's kind of, especially in a team sport, I think there's really this force between members of the team, especially on a successful team. I think there's, whether it's, you know, our energies are revolving in the right way around one another or something, but I think that there's a real force that holds really good teams together.
Well, that's a good one to come back to the scientist. Yeah. The force is with us.
Yes.
Right,
you hear it in sports a lot. Yeah. Oh man, they've got
the force be with you.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, are there good sides of the force and bad sides of the force, if you will?
Well, you know, there are different kinds of forces. There are gravitational forces and there are electromagnetic forces. And then there's weird nuclear forces, the strong nuclear force that keep the protons and neutrons together. So physicists and astronomers study all these forces and come to a greater understanding of how it is the universe, you know, if things work the way the forces are the fundamental thing in the study of how things work.
Now, you're a sports fan. We were talking before the show.
That's right.
Now, when you hear these athletes talk about the things that have application in the sciences and the sports, what do you make of that?
Well, I think these are concepts that are broadly applicable to many walks of life. And so, you were talking about passion and emotion and instinct, and those are less applicable to inanimate objects like planets and galaxies and stars.
They have no feelings.
Yeah, they have no feelings. But certainly scientists studying the universe have passion and this incredible feeling of discovery when you realize that you're the first person on Earth to understand something. That's an incredible feeling. So, all these things, and, of course, force and momentum and balance, those are obviously applicable to the universe. But even these emotional things are applicable to the scientists studying the universe.
Yeah, and I think in the arts, Brian, if you don't have emotion and passion and pathos for it, there would be no creation.
Exactly. I agree with Brad. I think passion and the love of what you do is essential, the beginning of your growth as an artist, and it's okay to fail. I think that's important to remember, that in the process that you are going to make mistakes, and to accept that as part of that process as you begin to develop your vision. It doesn't mean that you're going to be the most popular, and if you are popular as a result of your creation, fantastic, but that shouldn't be just enough. You need to persevere and pursue greater objectives for yourself as an artist.
One thing we didn't really touch upon, we've kind of skirted around it, is attitude. I mean, if you come in with a negative mindset or a positive mindset, or if you have, that strong will and that attitude, that's going to carry you beyond maybe your own physical limitation, take you beyond the point that you thought you could go, Brad.
Well, attitude is huge. I mean, sometimes you can see some of the best athletes, and they don't really love what they're doing. And then sometimes you see somebody that's not as good, and all of a sudden you're looking, how is he in there? And it's because of the belief, and because that his attitude is, you know what, I belong. And bringing it is a huge thing. And I tell you, when you're a coach or parent, and all of a sudden somebody doesn't want to do something, it's hard to make somebody do something and be passionate about it. You want that person that you know is passionate like yourself.
Yeah, and of course in your sport, it's an individual endeavor, so you've got to get it together within yourself to have the right attitude. Jennifer and John, you're in sports where you can have a great attitude and your couple of teammates don't, and either you bring them along or they'll drag everybody down.
Well, I love the quote, talent gets tired, because I would much rather play with athletes that are passionate and that are, really want to be there and want to work hard, and I think that's where you really have a winning environment on a team. And if you've got kind of those negative forces, those negative people, it's better without them. No matter how talented they may be, you don't win with those people.
Yeah, you're only as strong as your weakest link, huh? What about you, John?
I think that your attitude, you can change everything, the way that you look at everything by having a positive attitude and making sure that you want to be there and want to compete, and I think it's contagious around your teammates. If you come into practice every day and you're negative about whatever it may be, and in soccer especially, training facilities or locker rooms, field conditions, you come in what you're doing and you get the great attitude, you carry people along with you.
Right. And as now a general manager of a professional soccer team, you've got to be much more acutely attuned into that. When you played in an Olympic effort and all that, I got to take care of me, okay? And hopefully that will be a positive influence on the team. But now that you're putting a team together, that's a whole different thing.
And again, it's being, for me, being positive with things and making sure that I let the players know that positive, that we're moving in the direction, that we're working as hard as we can to make everything perfect. And I perfection, but sometimes it's not going to be perfect, and just getting on with what you're trying to do, be successful as a team and as a franchise.
And Brian, sometimes I think if you have a bad attitude, maybe you can make an incredible creation in art, because it could be dark and it could reveal something very fascinating of the human psyche. But more often than not, I think having a positive attitude would compel you to do things that you want.
In today's environment, I think it's required of artists to really accept the responsibility of owning up to what it is that they're involved in, and whatever genre that may be. But the positivity that surrounds that genre or that creation is really what's going to make it develop and grow and nurture. And what ends up happening is it is contagious. Positivity, good attitude, positive reinforcement of something that people firmly believe in, it will have an inherent positive effect on our people.
Feel the aura? Feel the glow? Good energy in the room here. Thanks so much for everybody. I guess from what we've just heard, it may be that the ancient Greeks were right. Sport is a part of the arts and sciences. And if this is so, the prevailing way of thinking that separates athletics and academics may in fact be misguided to the detriment of school children everywhere. At the same time, this gives us cause to examine this issue in more depth and envision a time when our schools will once again address the needs of the whole child through sport. And through sport, our students will study the likes of Ruth, Galileo, Da Vinci, Pele, Copernicus, and of Michelangelo. Hey, I think I'd like to go to this school, don't you? Well, thanks again to our panelists, Jennifer Azzi, John Doyle, Professor Alex Filipenko, Brad Gill, and Brian Storr.